The thing I'm going to be focusing on today, kind of linked to what Owen was mentioning there, is around talking a bit around emotional intelligence, in particular our emotions. Now, emotional intelligence, if you want to look at some of the stats, around 90% of top performers have high levels of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is responsible for around 58% of your performance. And on average, people with a higher level of emotional intelligence earn between £25,000 and £30,000 more a year than those with low EQ. So a big part of emotional intelligence is how you manage your emotions, how you understand them. So what I'm going to talk about today is a bit more around reframing your emotions, something that I think a lot of us aren't really told about and can have a misconception around them. So I'll start by a little giving you a bit of an imagery. Just imagine there's some of you probably on the call that absolutely love roller coasters, some of you that absolutely hate them. If I picked someone that loved roller coasters and someone that absolutely hated them, and I stuck them on a roller coaster together, they would go round, they would both scream, they would both feel the same thing, but their perception of that feeling would be very different. And the point of that is that there is no such thing as a good or bad emotion. There is only such thing as a good or bad perception to an emotion. If you look at sports stars, for example, the Euros being on, people asking them at the end, are you nervous about coming into this? And they said, no, I was excited. Nervousness and excitement are the same feelings, but it's your perception that puts them into a different camp. And what emotions are really there for us to use are there to serve us, not sabotage us. But a lot of the time, what we see emotions as threats, as things that come in as obstacles, as competition to get in our way. When in reality, what they are is really signals. They're signals to warn us about something. They're signals to help us in a situation. For example, when we get stressed to help us serve us in that situation, to avoid us becoming even more overwhelmed if we weren't. Or anxious. For example, for me, I speak quite openly about this, and one of the reasons I set up Psyche, I struggled a lot of anxiety in my early sales career, and it used to really sort of, derail me and force me to struggle. But over time, started to realize, what is it trying to tell me? What is it trying to serve me with? How is it helping me become more proactive and preventative towards things coming up? So it's really important to be mindful of these emotions when they are coming in. And I'll go through some questions to ask yourself shortly about how you can manage this. Because otherwise what happens is with these emotions, when they overcome you, they take over your mind, is that you then start this sort of trail of the negative what ifs come in, is what I call them. These thoughts and these ideas, because you get yourself into a certain state of mind of, what if I don't hit target? What if my team don't perform? What if I don't do well with this demo? What if they don't like the proposal? Whatever it might be, all these negative what ifs. And of course, all that happens is you play this story in your head and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because it makes you more stressed, it makes you more anxious, and it's more likely to happen. So there's a few things you can do around this, and it links to something called the ABC method. Now, some of you might be familiar with CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. If you've experienced that, they talk around that in this. But the ABC method is pretty much A stands for activating event, B stands for beliefs about the event, and C stands for consequences. So often what we all do, default setting, because the brain is designed to keep us alive, is to think about the worst case scenario, is our activating event. We often internalize our thoughts. We don't really reflect on them. And that leads to the beliefs about the event becoming irrational. And irrational beliefs about an event lead to consequences that are negative. If we can externalize that activating event and actually look at it as more of an observer, observing our thoughts rather than seeing them as competition and our emotions, we can start to create more rational beliefs about that event and therefore more positive consequences as a result. So a few questions to ask yourself, or even to ask your team as well when you're in your one-to-ones. There's a few things to explore here around thoughts. What's really important when you're having a thought coming up in your mind is it's very easy for us to often think that every thought we have has to be true. And the first thought we have is always the right one, when of course it isn't. We have around 4,000 words per minute going on in our mind if you were actually typing it out of what goes on in our head with our self-talk. So it's really important to ask yourself two questions. The first one is, where is the evidence? So when you're thinking something and you're about to buy into it, thinking this person isn't going to say yes, or I'm not going to hit my target, asking yourself, where is the evidence? Because a lot of the time, all we have is this one-track mind in our brain, the kind of prosecution, as I call it, really, in our mind. If you imagine it in a courtroom, you've just got the prosecution giving one side of the story. And what you've got to do over time, and this was where comes emotional intelligence and training it, is creating that defense, is actually going, where is the evidence to this? As in, where's the proof? Because often it's an irrational thought. And when you ask yourself that, it's very hard to pinpoint it. And then also asking yourself, what else could be true here? So while you're doing that is going, well, okay, I'm going to need to give a balanced side, because if something hasn't happened yet, I need to look at it from 2 or 3 different sides. So what else might be true here? Well, I might hit my target this month, or they might say yes, or this demo might go really well, rather than just going down one sort of track around it. So it's always important to ask yourself, where is the evidence to back it up? Because often there isn't. And this can be really helpful just to disprove some of these thoughts and these feelings that happen. And also, what else could be true here? So you're looking at other possibilities and other ways of looking at things. Now, from your emotions side of things, when you start to feel anxious or stressed, for example, is first of all thinking, right, why am I getting anxious? So, for example, if I was preparing for this today, I'd be like, why am I getting anxious? Well, I'm getting anxious because, what happens if I mess up what I'm going to talk about, or it doesn't resonate with them? Okay, great. Okay, that's the thing I'm getting anxious about. What's one thing I can do to reduce that anxiety? Well, I could go through it. I could practice it a couple more times. Great. Okay. I've asked myself that question. The next question I ask myself is, well, okay, around that, with that emotion, how is that serving me? How is that benefiting me? What happens if I wasn't anxious? Well, if I wasn't anxious, it probably shows I wouldn't care. It probably means I might turn up and do a bad job, and hopefully I'm not. I might turn up and forget what I was going to say. But because of that anxiety, it's actually making me become more proactive and preventative around this. So, for example, when you're thinking about being stressed at the start of the month for your targets, or, if a meeting goes well, ask yourself, would I rather be stressed now or last day of the month when I haven't done anything, or the month's gone, or the quarter's gone, or the demo's gone, or the presentation's gone, and then I start to feel it? Which of the two would you rather? You'd rather feel like that at the start. But it's about recognizing this emotion is trying to tell me something, and then recognizing, do you know what? This is actually helping me. This is helping me prepare for something. This is helping me care about something. It's showing a sign of humility that I want to do a good job around this. And the more you can do that, the more you can start to recognize these emotions as something you can be grateful for, something that are there to actually serve you, so that when they come up, you don't have this resistance of trying to push away from them, which creates more of an emotion around it in itself. So just have a think about that next time these thoughts come into your head, these emotions pop up, whether it's at the start of a month, before a call, before a demo, before a meeting, before you get your team together and talk about targets for the quarter, is actually thinking, right, okay, when these thoughts pop up, asking yourself, where is the evidence and what else could be true here? And when these emotions start popping up, is asking yourself, how is this serving me? And also, what's one thing I can do to address this emotion, to be grateful for it, to start recognizing it rather than feeling like it's sabotaging you. So thanks everyone for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed the session, and I'll hand back to James and Owen.